In the late 1920s, the greatest minds, the likes of Einstein, Bohr, Schrödinger and Heisenberg, had a meeting, and they thought and came up with a theory that stated the following in simple terms. The electron is like a wave when you are not looking at it, and it is like a particle when you look at it. In other words, it chooses one state or version to appear when you look at it. They called it the Copenhagen Interpretation of quantum mechanics. However, in 1957, another scientist, Hugh Everett, came up with a different idea called the many worlds interpretation. He said that instead of choosing one state, the universe splits into different versions for every possible outcome. So, every time a choice happens, new universes are created, each showing a different result. We only see one version in our world. Both ideas share one important point. Observation, or paying attention, is what causes the change, either by choosing a state or creating new worlds. After years of studying both science and ancient wisdom, like from yogis and monks, one thing stands out. Observation is powerful. When we focus our attention the right way, we might be able to influence events and shape the reality we want. In this video, I'm going to share with you how you can use your attention to create the reality that you want. So with that, let's get started. Now, let's get to understanding how our attention actually dictates the version of reality that gets manifested. In order to understand that, we have to understand how energy flows. Anytime you're feeling stuck in your life, you feel like you've been working towards something and it just hasn't been happening, or similar situations keep arising. Same revenue roller coasters, same relationships you keep attracting. What you have to understand is, somewhere there is stuck energy. If energy cannot flow, which is what needs to happen with energy, it gets stagnant. And when it gets stagnant, we experience the same circumstance. But what directs the flow of energy? Attention. Wherever attention goes, energy flows. Our focus and our attention determine where energy flows. What most people don't know is the nature of our attention. There are two main types of attention that we possess. There is what's called polar attention and non-polar attention. Polar attention has the power to attract and repel reality. Let's get rid of the repel part and focus solely on the attract part, because they're one and the same. Any problem flipped to its side becomes the solution, two different sides of the same coin. From attracting something and repelling something else, that's what polar attention does. Non-polar attention is completely neutral. It has the power to dissolve reality. In terms of quantum events manifesting into our lives, let's look at what this could mean. If we have two types of polar attention, the positive attention and the negative attention, when we think positively about something, life doesn't care about the real nature of our attention. It cares about the content. If I hate bills and I hate losing money, I'm going to get more of the event of losing money and bills. If I love making money and I love growing, then I will get more of the thing that I love, growing and making more money. How we've been conditioned is, throughout our whole lives, we've lived in a fear and survival mode because that's become our biology. All around us, we've been conditioned to, first and foremost, survive. So we've been conditioned to live in this protection mode, this avoid conflict, avoid taking risks mode. A lot of us have been conditioned this way. And because of that, we keep experiencing more and more of the thing that we're worried about. So just think about what you see on the news. Think about what you read on social media. And think about why there's more fear-mongering than anything else going on. That's what others can hook on to. The pendulums, all the societal conditioning around us. That's how they can manipulate us and influence us, when they can hook onto our fears. In fear, anger and pride, we can be moved into action the most effectively. Please take a moment to reflect on that. There are so many prideful people who are ready to go to war to protect the thing that they love. It makes them blind to what's really going on. And it's very easy to get someone to do a certain desired type of action when they're angry. And it's very easy to make someone do a certain kind of action when they're fearful. So, fear, anger, and pride are what society keeps us stuck in, keeps our attention focused on, which makes us do things that we don't necessarily want to do. So, for most people, they keep experiencing the same relationships over and over because they keep holding on to this trauma from the past. Their attention is more focused on avoiding the kind of relationships they've had, which is why they keep attracting that same kind of relationship, the same kind of partner. Most people get traumatized by an event, and they're afraid. They haven't processed that event properly, which is where neutral attention or non-polar attention comes in. We're going to talk about this in a second, but for now, you have to understand there are two different types of attention, positive and negative. Life only cares about the content of our attention, what we're giving more attention to. Let's say it's an important business decision that you have to make, or a challenge comes up in your business regarding an employee or whatever it may be. If we choose to positively perceive it, and the content of our positive attention is, hey, somehow this will help me grow, then the lifeline will shift to a more positive lifeline. More of that thing that you feel positively about will manifest. On the other hand, if we feel negatively about it and we think, oh no, this is something that's bad, well, that bad thing will happen. So you see what's happening here. We feel positively and our mind perceives the content to be positive. We feel negatively and our mind perceives the content to be negative. Let's say something unfortunate happens to you. You know, you get like a very big tax bill. Immediately you're like, oh, this is bad. If this happened, that means something worse or terrible will happen. How do you know that? You're just assuming that because you've become fearful. It's made you become fearful. When we have a feeling, we try to justify the presence of that feeling by thinking about other things that potentially could make this fear stronger. Why do we do that? We're feeling creatures. When we feel something, we feel alive. Therefore, we survive. That is our biological conditioning. When we are in a state of fearfulness, we start to spew up all of these things that could potentially happen. Oh no, now that could go wrong, and something else could go wrong. Oh no, what if this big tax bill means I can't pay my business expenses, and I can't pay my rent, or I can't pay my employees? What if all these things happen? That's when you go into a spiral, because now this negative attention starts to influence the content of your attention. I hope this is making sense. If you have any questions, just let me know below. The key thing is, it has to have a correspondence of heart and mind. When you feel negatively in your heart, the mind immediately spews up negative things, which then makes it manifest, which makes you shift into a corresponding lifeline where more of that negative thing will happen. But here's what's crucial. If we perceive something that's happened to us with non-polar and neutral attention, it simply comes into our lives and passes. It has no power over us. So, let's say in this unfortunate circumstance where you got hit with a big tax bill, you simply looked at it and you accepted it, and you had neither positive nor negative feelings about it. You would still continue on that same life path that you were on before. Nothing would really change. It would dissolve itself. For most people, they resist their past traumas and their fears by attributing negative attention to it. Think about how this happens. Whenever something has happened to us in the past that we don't like, We try to run away from it because the feelings are too strong and we don't know how to handle it. So when we run away, what are we essentially doing? We're resisting it. Whatever you resist persists. You give it force. It has a counterforce back onto you. We spend our whole lives resisting all of the things that have happened in the past that we don't like, and we live from that place of trauma. Because of that, situations that affirm that trauma keep coming up. An example I can give you is about a guy I know named Jake. In high school, Jake struggled a lot with math. He used to say, "I'm just not a math person. That's why I always fail." That belief held him back for years. But one day, Jake decided to look at things differently. He started telling himself, "What if this struggle is actually teaching me something important, like resilience and problem solving?" With that mindset shift, Jake took action. He started staying after school for tutoring, practicing every day, and asking his friends for help. Over time, he didn't just improve his grades, he learned how to tackle challenges head-on. Now, Jake says his struggles in math were one of the best things that ever happened to him. They taught him grit and determination, skills that helped him succeed in college and later in his career. When Jake tells his story, he always emphasizes this. It wasn't the struggle that defined him, it was how he chose to perceive and respond to it. That mindset shift made all the difference. What happens to you may not be, but if you can choose your attention, I can tell you what happens afterward is going to correspond with that attention. Now that you hopefully understand this, let's talk about how to use this to effectively create reality. I'm going to give you another concrete example to help you fully understand. Let me tell you about someone I know. Let's call her Sarah. Sarah had a dream of leaving her 9-to-5 job as a school teacher and becoming a full-time life coach. She was passionate about helping people, but felt trapped in a system where she had little time or energy to make a real impact. Her workdays were long. She had to wake up at 5 a.m. and often stayed at school until the evening, swamped with grading and meetings. She saw many of her colleagues burnt out, just going through the motions. Sarah set a goal. By the end of the year, she wanted to replace her $3,500 monthly teaching income through coaching. She promised herself that if she could do it, she'd quit her job and dive into coaching full-time. At first, she made slow progress. She spent her evenings building her coaching business, squeezing in client calls and marketing after long workdays. By mid-year, she was earning small amounts here and there, $500 one month, $1,000 the next. But it was nowhere near her goal. December rolled around, and Sarah hadn't hit her target. She was crushed. She had worked so hard, but the fear of failing, of not meeting her goal, had consumed her. She realized that her fear and desperation had been holding her back. She'd been so focused on avoiding failure that she hadn't been fully present in her work or her mission. Instead of giving up, Sarah shifted her mindset. She decided to stop obsessing over the numbers and focus on the bigger picture, serving her clients and creating value. She let go of the fear and simply gave her all to the process. In January, everything changed. Sarah signed 2 new clients in 1 week and earned $6,000 that month, more than she made as a teacher. By March, she hit her first $10,000 month. By the summer, she was consistently earning $15,000 a month and, finally, left her teaching job. Sarah's story is a powerful reminder that fear and desperation can be some of the biggest obstacles to success. Once she let go of her fear and focused on her true purpose, she achieved results far beyond what she initially set out to accomplish. That goes to show what happens when you let go of resisting failure so much and just shift your attention to what you want instead. When she focused on what she wanted to move away from, she moved toward it. Life doesn't differentiate. Positive and negative attention are polar. They have attractive qualities. You have to remember this. Most people are more afraid of failing than they love to succeed. They're more afraid to lose money than they love making money. Shift your attention toward what is wanted instead. Now, I know this is very easy to say, so I'm going to share with you a concrete method to do this. This method is called accept and redirect, a combination of utilizing both polar and non-polar attention. This is crucial, so pay close attention. There are 3 main steps to using this. I promise you, if you use it, all the energy you give to negative attention will dissipate, and you'll have more energy left to feed the positive version of reality you want to create. Step 1. Acceptance. Recall what happened to Sarah during the month of December. She went into a deep pit of despair, and her worst fear had come to life. She then fully accepted the situation. When we accept something, we can't be in resistance. You can't be in resistance and acceptance at the same time. Acceptance is the antidote to resistance. Please understand this. This is like the ancient art of Aikido. The sole method is to take the momentum of the attacker and use it against them. We're not mustering up any sort of energy. The only energy being exerted is in redirection. I'm getting out of the way. Your goals literally want to be manifested. You're just in the way. You just need to get out of the way for them to come into existence. This is how you do that. This is the ancient art of Aikido in the mental form. We begin with full acceptance of the current situation. Whatever issues are going on in your life right now, whatever you feel stuck with, whatever your worst nightmare is, imagine that it happens. Get fully on board with it happening, and imagine and see how life still goes on despite it happening. You are no longer worried by your worst nightmare. You are no longer haunted. This is absolutely critical because most people think, oh, if I accept the worst case scenario, won't it manifest in my life? No, it won't. Quite the contrary. If you accept the worst case scenario, you're no longer giving it the energy of your resistance. If that's the case, you're no longer feeding it. But if you keep resisting it, you keep feeding it, and it's more likely to happen in your life because you're giving it power. But if you simply accept it and get out of the way, this is where neutral attention gets used. Acceptance is neutral attention. In order to make a change in any area of our lives, it has to begin with acceptance, full, utter, complete acceptance of this current moment. We cannot change the current moment, no matter how hard we try. You cannot change right now, because the present is continually becoming the past. By the time you catch it, it's already become the past. There is no way to change this present moment. What you can do, what is in your power, is to choose what you would like instead in the next moment. Step 2. Perceive the positive. After you accept this current moment and all of the problems, you follow that track of thinking to what the worst-case scenario would be. Hey, I'm making $2,000 a month. What if next month I made absolutely zero? That's my worst fear. That's the worst version of this current setback. Think about what the worst version of the current setback is. If it could get worse, what's the worst that could possibly happen? You'll probably always arrive at death, but that's usually the most unlikely thing to happen. We trick ourselves into believing, if my business dies, I die. We become attached. We become identified with the things that we do. Get to the worst-case scenario and get into complete acceptance of it. That way, you drop all importance. Then step 2 is to perceive how this unfortunate event or mishap could potentially be a blessing in disguise. Any event that happens is a neutral event. We give it positive, negative, or neutral energy by the nature of our attention. Instead of looking at it as, "Oh, this is bad," look at it as, "Hey, how could this potentially be an advantage? How could this potentially be good?" A close friend of mine recently went through a tough situation with a job opportunity. He had been interviewing for a position he thought was perfect. Great salary, great team, everything seemed to align. He got all the way to the final stage, and then nothing. The company just stopped responding. Days turned into weeks, and it was clear they had moved on without telling him. He felt crushed and betrayed, questioning everything. But instead of dwelling on the loss, he began to ask, what if this is actually for the best? Maybe the company wasn't as great as it looked. Maybe the role wasn't going to fulfill him the way he imagined, or maybe something better was coming that he couldn't yet see. Sure enough, just a month later, he landed another job. Better pay, closer to home, and with a boss who genuinely valued him. Sometimes life closes doors because it's steering us towards something better. It's easy to get caught up in frustration and disappointment, but what if setbacks are actually setups for greater opportunities? Have you ever considered that the obstacles in your path might be the universe's way of guiding you to where you're meant to be? All of this is easier to do, by the way, once you've already gotten to a state of acceptance. If you're in that state where the wound is fresh and something bad has just happened, don't expect yourself to look for blessings in disguise. Just get to a point of acceptance and come to terms with the fact that this has happened. Once you reach a more neutral point, then you can start looking at how this could potentially be positive. Step 3. Redirect to what you want. Finally, continually redirect your attention to what is wanted instead. If you can be in a place of full equanimity and full acceptance, then you have freed up your attention to fully choose what's wanted instead. Oh, this house isn't working out. What do we want? We want a house that is X, Y, and Z and has all the qualities we're looking for. Once you get really good at doing this, you become unstoppable. Nothing can stop you. This whole process determines which life path you follow, which quantum event manifests, and which quantum event you experience in your life. And this all has to do with your attention. There is a great reason why so many cultures and ancient religions emphasize attention. They talk about attending to something, giving something your attention, or observing it, being in an observation mode. Here, we're combining both non-polar and polar attention. With non-polar attention, we get into acceptance mode. This is neither good nor bad. I'm just accepting that this fully happened. Then, we start to shift into a little bit of positive attention. How could this be a blessing in disguise? Finally, we build up to full-blown positive attention when we're in a state of equanimity. What most people do is stay in resistance mode. They say, "Oh, let's look for the good in this," or they repeat affirmations in the mirror while feeling terrible about themselves. If you feel terrible about yourself today, allow yourself to feel terrible. Accept that you're feeling bad. Once you're in a place of equanimity, then you can focus on what's wanted instead. But if you try to huff and puff your chest, suppress, hide, or repress what you're feeling, it's going to come back to haunt you in the future. In that case, the affirmation or the positive thinking you're attempting becomes a form of resistance. You're resisting feeling something by saying the affirmation. That's what's happening. This 3-step method, when continually applied, has the power to completely change your life. Thank you for watching. Let me hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next one.